All right, a very good evening wherever you are watching us from. Your right on time for this special session of discussion where we will be talking on matters that have been ongoing for the last few months, and now we are going to the climax of the general election set for the 9th of August this year, and that is a discussion that has continued to elicit different reactions from different quarters, as well as the preparedness of the country towards the August polls. How prepared are we as a country to be able to make sure that the elections are conducted in a fair, free and transparent manner? That is all about the discussion that has been going on, and as you understand, our discussion tonight will be about securing a peaceful general election under the JPRC week, where the JPRC stands for Justice, Peace, Reconciliation and Creation, a faction of the Presbyterian Church of East Africa that advocates for peaceful election. And that is our discussion this evening. We'll be trying to touch different areas where we will be talking about, as a country, as a church, and as a people, are we prepared for a peaceful election? And with me in studio, I have my two guests who will be helping me, have that discussion this evening. And on my near right is Simon Waweru Wanjiru. He's an experienced electoral data practitioner with vast experience in systematic election observation, data analytics, and data collection systems. Welcome, Simon, to the program this evening.
Shukran sana, and good evening, viewers. I hope you are going to have a good time and you're going to learn a lot from us. We are sharing, we are all learning together, and we are going to have a wonderful and fruitful evening.
Right, and that's a good introduction. And then on the far right is not a very new face on our screens, is Reverend Elias Otieno Agola. Is a parish minister at Kawa West, also a certified professional mediator, and also a governance consultant. Welcome to the program this evening.
Thank you so much. Good evening, viewers. I'm here again to discuss issues JPRC.
All right, and just as we kickstart our conversation this evening, of course, people are excited about this discussion, and it's a discussion that involves all quarters. And I just want to remain with you, Reverend, just to begin our discussion. I have mentioned about JPRC being the Justice, Peace, Reconciliation and Creation, and someone would be somewhere asking themselves, what is this JPRC? What is the mandate of JPRC? Just briefly, would you tell us more about JPRC?
Well, we've been talking about JPRC for some time, since last week. And to kick the JPRC week, we started with the lighting of the torch, what we call the Peace Torch Initiative. This is an initiative to mitigate against conflicts by raising our voices and speaking peace, and using the torch as a symbol of peace, but emphasizing more on the messages of peace. JPRC stands for Justice, Peace, Reconciliation and Creation. And every word in the name JPRC is a thematic area. When we talk about justice, we are talking about how we can advocate for a quickening of justice and making people aware of their rights and responsibilities. At the same time, when we talk about peace, we are talking about a mitigation measure for people who may be potentially in conflict, or may be thinking about conflicting with one another, or when in the unlikely event there is a dispute. Then we also talk about peace before, during and after, and especially now, before the elections, during elections, and even after the elections. So we are advocates of that peace and ambassadors of the same. And when we talk about reconciliation, we are bringing the issues around the interventions, that in the unlikely event that people conflict with one another, what do we do? And who are we? Then we become reconciliators, and at the same time we become mediators that can bring people together to identify their issues, and also to see possible ways of having permanent resolutions for their conflict situations. But again, when we talk about creation, we are talking about ourselves as the co-managers with God in handling creation and in protecting creation. Therefore, JPRC talks around justice issues, talks around peace issues, and also talks about reconciliation, mediation, and we also talk about environment and the creation in general, humanity, and other creations.
Right. And it's also good to note that you're also the JPRC National Coordinator.
Yes.
Talking about matters to do with peace. And just jumping to you, Simon, you have a vast experience, in election matters in regards to election observation and data that relates to election as well. Someone would be asking ourselves, why should we talk daily about elections? Now is the season. You see, right now you cannot tell someone any different story apart from telling them the 9th of August 2022. How is election so important for us?
Thank you so much. And as you've said, it is that season. And as the Bible says, there's season and there's time for each and everything. So for now, we are looking at why do we need to look at these processes? These are very key and important processes for us. Remember, this is how we look for the leadership. When we talk about the future, we talk about good leadership. We can have a bright future, which we always talk about. We want a bright future without talking about these processes. So as for now, we are looking at issues about voter education. Why do we want to go and vote, which is paramount, and what type of leaders do we want to go and vote? Who do we categorize to be a good leader? We've always said about selfless leaders, leaders who are very impartial, who are going to treat people the same. Did you vote for me or not? And this is something that we have many actors also going to add that information. I think we can talk about the processes. What exactly do we need to talk about? One of them is this is a new election. In this election, we have about 2.5 million new voters from the previous election in 2017. So we need to tell them, how do you vote? So the first thing is that the IBC, for you to go and vote, you must be a registered voter. And that day you must present yourself, present your national ID, so that, and then they will identify you using the biometrics. There have been a lot of talk about, are we doing digital, that is the kits, or are we doing the physical? So these two are important processes. They have their own merits and demerits. Sometimes because when we say just digital, there are people who are not found using their thumbprints. Remember, there are people who work in the quarries, their fingers get torn because of the stones. Also, the guys who burn charcoal, they also get those issues. And so all these are factors that now have to be considered between manual and when we talk about the electronic. So, and also now through the voter education, this is where we continue building trust in the processes. Remember, use of technology and not use of technology. We are trying to cure one big disease. If we look at a tree style, thinking about a tree has a trunk, it has roots, and we have the fruits or the leaves. The trunk of the problem is about trusting the processes. Do we trust the processes? And all these now are what now we look at. And one of them, and say JPRC are also doing that, is about educating people at this point. That now the elections, if we all have faith in the processes, we are going to do the right thing, do the right voting, and we continue now having a better future together. Yes.
And one of the key roles of observers is ensuring that we have a free, fair, and transparent election period. Because if we don't have that, then we are not going to have a peaceful election. So at this point, as a nation and as a people, you see how we are prepared ourselves as a people, and from where you sit, are we prepared as a nation for a peaceful election?
Thank you very much. So we start with looking at, in terms of preparations, we just don't look at one actor. We can look at who are the stakeholders, So the stakeholders one is the EMB, the electoral management body. In our country, this is the IBC. They're the ones who are constitutionally mandated to conduct the election and also conduct the referenda, if we have the referenda. And IBC has been doing the voter week, or what they are calling the electoral preparation week, from Monday, 11th and 12th.
Yesterday and today.
Yes, yesterday and today. And today they flagged off the voter education caravans, which will traverse the whole country. And these are processes. Also, we've seen the ballot papers coming through. The first batch. The printing of the ballot is a lot of ballots, because when you think about, we have over 22 million voters. When you multiply that number by six, that brings you about 120 million ballot papers that we will expect in the country. There are so, because there are about 3 people who have already been gazetted, because there is no opposition to them, and so they get directly gazetted as duly elected. So when we look at that, and then also the information, they have been now releasing information, sometimes not fully, because there are so many factors that have held them. For example, by now we needed to have the list of polling stations gazetted. You have to gazette the locations, all of them. We have the schools, the churches, wherever they will be conducting an election. It's supposed to be out by now. But because of the issues of the voters register, the issues of people who had been moved, that has not yet finalized. For now, they needed to have gazetted the nominated guys, or who now we call the candidates. Yes, the candidates. That one has been done. However, there are some that have not been done because of the pending court cases, the judicial process, which has slowed things a bit. But it's okay, because we always say that judicial process is part of an election process. So we can't say it's bad to go to court. Yes, even if sometimes it delays things, but it's an avenue that is there and given by the Constitution. Yes. And
I just want to come to you, Reverend. You've talked about the preparedness of different bodies, starting from the election management body, of course, being the IBC, and the people also being in a good position that they're educated enough to understand that this is how the election should be carried out. Just looking at how things are, everyone is calling for a peaceful election, right? Even from the sitting president saying we need a peaceful transition into the next government. But are we seeing a scenario where we've started making the peaceful calls very late, that would have started long time, at least to sensitize people about the peaceful elections?
Well, I think the preparedness for elections involve all the actors. There is that which the citizens themselves, the voters themselves, need to be sure that they are prepared for the elections. What Simon called the civic education, which is supposed to precede voter education. And voter education here means being aware of the voting process or the electoral process, how it takes place from the beginning, right from the beginning, when people are registering, when people are transferring from wherever they were, when people are, inspecting the registers to see whether their names are still there and whether they are eligible voters, when people are getting ready to have their IDs and securing their IDs so that they are not tampered with or they don't get lost, because it is one of the ways you are going to be, and mostly the only way you are going to be identified. If your fingerprints cannot help you be identified, then the ID number, the ID itself, will be a mark that somebody needs to have. And then the preparedness on how to mark the ballots. Are we able to know how to mark the ballots right? Because if you do your signature, is it going to be counted? If you do more than one mark, is it going to be counted? If you mark, across the line, will it be counted? I think this is what is supposed to be the line of preparedness for the voter. But again, we also have the preparedness for the electoral bodies I mean the institutions that manage the elections. And these institutions include the police, it includes the IEBC, it includes the intelligence, it includes so many, and all of us are supposed to be, ready for these elections. But we need also to draw a line between what they say as their confirmation that they are prepared vis-a-vis what we see. Because you may say one thing, but you know that it is just for PR. It is just for PR.
PR stunts.
PR stunts. But now, when we look at them critically, are we able to say that they have met their timelines and the milestones that they were supposed to do by whatever time? Is that what they have done? We only have 27 days remaining, and as at now, people are supposed to be going to Greece to verify the processes and to visit the factory. Again, is it within the timeline or is it late? And how are they going to expedite this so that those who are supposed to go and they come back with a report? You see, because you've heard Simon say that the number of ballot papers that are going to be printed, they are in millions and millions. Why? Because if we have, for example, in one position, for example, an MCA in a particular ward, there are how many people? We call them 10. So can you, if we say an average is 5, just MCA alone, how many wards are there in the Republic? So we are talking of millions and millions of election ballot papers, and this is something that should have been procured. But again, you see these processes like the court processes. In the news, we hear that some people have just been cleared from the courts, and therefore their names are going to be included. There are other laws that have not been passed and were to be passed. However, the commission cannot be held ransom because of some of those processes. They have to continue, and if somebody rushes to court, it will be on a case-by-case measured. But now, the need for us to speak peace can never be late. And sometimes, if we have to be true to ourselves, look at the past elections. A time like this, there were so many, reports of casualties and news about deaths and displacement of people. We would say that we are not late. The reason is, even though we were not amplifying everything, every other person that was talking about peace, even in low tones, was able to make an impact. And that's why we do not have a lot of problems now as we have had in the past. A time like this, you'd hear, displacement of people from Kurusoi. You'd hear them in Likia area. You'd hear the Moroni situations. You'd hear, some places like the coast. You'd hear a lot of those displacement of people. But we thank God that at least our clergy from all faiths have been speaking peace. And for example, NCCK has been developing some peace messages and take them to, to the pastors in the grassroots, and they use these peace messages in preaching the message of peace. So it is not late.
Never late to preach peace.
Never late to preach peace. And peace message is a peace message, even when it comes, whatever people may call a bit late, is still a peace message.
It's never late to make peaceful calls for the election.
Never late.
Just coming to you, Simon, I know for you, the time matters a lot in regards to 27 days to the general election. It's never late to call for peace. But it's we are rushing against time to ensure that everything falls in place so that everything goes as planned and constitutionally right. And that is one of the tasks that observers would be having, whether the election meets the requisition that is required by the constitution. We have 27 days. Rev talked about people now having to travel to go and visit where the ballot papers are being printed. Are we seeing a scenario where there's so many undone things against a very short time?
Yes, thank you so much. So for the observers, we move from the election from more of a process. Not only now preparing for the election day, but we have the processes that come before. For example, I will talk about the election observation group as an example, because that's where we work. And we have been monitoring and observing the process from the party nominations, party agents registration, coming all the way towards the election, looking at the issues in the media, main media, the social media, all these processes. So, and one of the things, and we have tried to look at it and talk about it, is that sometimes we miss these targets. And some of them, as Rev says, is about peace. How do we ensure there is peace? Peace is more of an outcome. So the input of it is making sure people have information at the right time and the right information, not just information. This has been the main thing, because one of the problems that we have found is sometimes the communication comes very late. And people don't even understand where exactly we are. And as Rev says, that it's always about giving information. And we work with the issue of open data in elections, where we talk about can you release this information as fast as possible to the people. Remember, sometimes the lack of information makes people now start creating stories. Remember, we had the stories of 2017 about the server. What we should be concerned is, were the results okay? And to confirm that, that's where the observers also come in. So, for example, now in this election, we will be deploying over 5,000 observers. They will be spread in each and every constituency. In each and every ward, you will find an observer. And they will help us collect information, and we will be able to talk about how are the processes done on the election day, because we've talked about the campaigns and given out our reports about the media. You've heard there's a lot of unbalanced way on how the media allocation of time is given, and even the Media Council has collaborated with that information, and also looking at how are the candidates conducting themselves. When the candidate gives also misinformation, it makes now people also to start ganging up against each other. Remember, election is not about the process. It's about emotion. It's an emotive process. I trust results because I feel they're okay. Not because they are okay, because I feel. So it's more of an emotion. And so as the observers now, we are getting ready with that. We are doing the recruitment. Then probably from next week, we start with the trainings. We will get ready. And before the election day, we will have deployed everyone ready and all systems go. Yes.
And just before we take a very short break, you've touched on very important matters that elections are very emotive, because right now you can see the emotional beat of it, talk about this, I feel this about this person. And before we take a very short commercial break and we come back, I want I talk to you, Rev, in regards to what Simon has talked about, the emotive part of it. This is something that is very crucial if indeed we must have a peaceful election. It's talked about, misinformation, erupting some emotions, could be negative, and right information erupting positive emotions. So as JPRC, being part of the, big and the larger picture of ensuring, there's peace after there's peace during and after election, what are some of the strategies that have been put in place?
Well, JPRC is concerned about engaging with people at all times. And JPRC is not just about elections. And that's what people used to think about JPRC, that whenever JPRC is mentioned, it is politics. and it is elections, and when politics and elections come down, then JPRC dies. That's not the JPRC that we are talking about, and therefore, having known that elections stir up emotions. The reason why they stir up emotions is because it is a contestant where we have a particular group of people, contesting for particular elective positions, and whatever is political is the game of numbers, and the many numbers you amass to yourself, the more you are sure of winning. And what heightens emotions mostly is because all of them, call them aspirants, call them candidates, call them political actors, all of them are preparing to win, and nobody is preparing to lose. And that is the tragedy, because every time you hear people talk, even those who know they can't make it sometimes, they still want to say, we are good to go, we are going to win, and we are the only people who are going to win. So nobody says, I'm not going to win. And therefore, it raises some emotions to some standard. And for the people that you have raised their emotions, they will never ever believe that they have lost. And even if they have lost fairly, they will still go to the streets and say, we did not lose. You have heard Simon talk about the opening of the server. When people were agitating for the opening of the server, it is a good idea, yes. But what did you want to do with that information? Immediately you get it. It was going to raise emotions and again, not to the positive, but to the negative. So elections and emotions are twin brothers or sisters, and the more we ask political contenders to tone down and speak reality, the more we are heading towards peace. But are they going to do it? Sometimes they may not. So every opportunity you give them, and that's why you heard the churches say, yes, we respect you as colleague leaders in the political field, but when you come to church, we are in charge. When you come to church, please tone down. When you come to church, and I give you an opportunity to greet the people, or even to pass a word, please do not attack the other person, because the more they do that, they do what? They raise emotions. And woe unto us when they raise emotions in the church. Then how are you going to bring these emotions down? Because in the Christian community or in the faith communities, we have people from all over. And suppose you come there to profile other people. Suppose you come there to stereotype other people. Suppose you come there to pass a message of hate speech. What do you think you are leaving this congregation with? And this is what they don't care about. When they go to these fields, when they go out to road shows, you hear them raise emotions. And some people may say, oh, IBC is not prepared. And you heard statements like, we may boycott elections. You heard statements like, we may not trust IBC. Now, if this is the body that we are given to manage elections, and a political leader raises the emotions of their people by passing on a message that is negative, then how are you prepared to bring it down? This is the concern of the church. And that is why in JPRC, we are setting aside every time to speak about peace and to say we need a peaceful Kenya before, during, and after. Because Kenya belongs to all of us. And although we are diversified in our affiliations and political persuasions and even faith persuasions, we are still a people of Kenya. Every one of us has no other country except this one. So anybody raising emotions is only an enemy of peace.
I think that is a very good point to, take a very short commercial break, that the peace belongs to each and every one of us. We take a very short commercial break right here on CAC TV, but when we return back, we'll be focusing more on how prepared are we to tackle a situation that will come forth after the August election. So don't go far away. We'll be right back after this short break.
Are you looking to grow your business? CAC TV offers you a variety of advertising opportunities to suit your budget. Advertise with us today and reach your potential customers countrywide. For more information, email us on sales@cactv.org or call 011 00 90 647.
Good journalism is bold, in-depth, unique, captivates, reflects, and impacts. To quench your thirst for exceptional stories that are about you, from you, and for you, CAC TV presents itself as the hub of feature stories. Ranging from health and environment,
either there is extreme drought or extreme floods, and these will affect people.
religion and politics,
And the man looked at the boy, looked at the mother, and told the boy, going forward, don't wet the bed again.
There come a time when the nation is more important than an individual.
education and socio-economic issues.
Nasaidika kwa sababu nikishona moja mbili nauza, napata kitu ya kulisha watoto.
I have met with other tribes which I have never met before.
To other stories that touch on your day-to-day life.
Ja ndio iko mingi zaidi. Tafadhali mnasaidia maji ya nyazi.
Tinga amekanyanga kila kitu.
Hatujawahi kuona mabadiliko yote kuhusiana na serikali ya kujengea sisi.
Kwanza kitu naweza omba tu nishikiliwe tu pande ya masomo tu ya watoto.
CAC TV, the hub of feature stories.
The great people on earth today are the people who pray. Not those who talk about prayer or those who explain about prayer, but those who take time and pray.
God answers prayers. Why? Because He hears. His ear is not deaf, so He hears our prayers.
Men and women who go before God, we should be men and women of godly standards. So we abide. So that we keep tapping from the source.
And as we pray, it is important to tell God that your will be done in this prayer that I'm praying, or about this item that I'm praying about. Not as I will, yes, this is my will, but let your will be done.
In these changing times and seasons of uncertainty, whom do you look up to?
God keeps His part. Calm rain, calm sunshine. God is still committed.
From one generation to another, and it's not like shifting shadows that He will change. But
join Reverend Elizabeth Kimani and Henry Kyra every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. live on CAC TV for Call Unto Me.
2021, He's still the same God and He has not changed.
All right, welcome back again to our discussion this evening, where we're talking about matters to do with a peaceful election, talking on matters to do with justice, peace, reconciliation, and creation, advocacy for peace during and after election. We continue with our discussion. Of course, we've been talking about different aspects of our preparedness towards the August polls. And as a country, are we prepared for a peaceful transition? And just coming back to my guest right here in the studio, I have Simon Waweru Wanjiru, is a specialist in data and also an election observer with vast experience in election matters, and Reverend Elias Otieno Ogola is a parish minister as well, and also governance consultant and in that capacity as well. And as we continue with our discussion, we were talking about our election period being a very emotive season where members of you can say members of public or other Kenyans are put in a position where now the emotions are being tested in ensuring that we have a peaceful transition. And I just want to begin with you, Simon, talking about the scenario of the emotive part of this election. People having to raise the emotion and the aspect where who makes them get emotional into this election. It is something that we cannot run away from. But are we in control of the situation?
Thank you very much. Yes, we are the drivers of this change. And the change that is getting away from now being in a point of thinking that because my neighbor, my wife supports a certain political side, that I am not supporting, that now she is an enemy. And also I have a point that before I spread in information, because we have a lot of information going through social media and WhatsApp groups. I will talk about the WhatsApp also, because this is where people are spreading misinformation. Somebody shares something, they doctor something, and they send to the people, so that now you started believing a certain fake information. For example, for this election, we have netted a lot of fake information. You can even find that somebody in Machakos made a letter that looked very authentic from IEBC, saying that the candidate there for gubernatorial for Wiper, Wavinya, had been disqualified because of the issue of the degree. And luckily the IBC were able to also net it, and they gave out information that it is fake. So, but because the lie and what is fake travels faster, we can say it is juicier for the people to read and listen and share. And in Kenya we've become breakers of news. I want to always share the first thing fast. So this is one of the things we say, that before you send that something to the people, because it is supposed to elicit a certain emotion, please take time to think, is it true? Do I want to be the one sending the wrong information, or do I want to become part of the change that is going to make sure that we are not spreading information that is going to be emotive to some tribes and also some communities and even minority groupings, all of this, because we are all coexisting and nobody has the right or says that this is right and this is wrong for people. So yes, we have the first step in doing it.
And we have talked about misinformation being a very key concept, for us to be able, to be in control of the situation. Of course, so many stakeholders, so many factors. And just coming to you, Rev, there is this aspect of misinformation. As a church is a very strong pillar and a great component in ensuring that we have a free, fair and transparent election, as well as a peaceful election. With so much misinformation during the election period, the church has its responsibility and has its role to play in ensuring that it sanctifies that information, that misinformation, and tell the people the truth. Is the church playing its role efficiently?
Well, I like the word efficiently. Whenever you use the word efficiently and effectively, efficiently means the process, and effectively means the product. It was said by the founding father of this nation, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, that the church is the conscience of the society. And sometimes back, I would say, the church lost appeared to have lost its prophetic voice and that shielding capacity to shield the faithfuls when they come to church. because we left the politicians to come and reign in our churches by coming with juicy, as Simon calls it, juicy messages that are empty in themselves. And therefore, when we as the church said that, yes, let them come as co-leaders, let them come as leaders and respected persons in the society, but in the church as worshippers. So how did we ensure that now we tell people the truth? Is because we realized that the social media informs the populate a lot of times with fake news. And as Simon put it, I would like to be the first to break the news. Without even, reading it, I forward it. So we are doing our best. I cannot say that we have done the best, because nobody is best, but we are doing our best to ensure that we feed people with the right information. Civic education, like for example myself, I do civic education in my church every Sunday from the pulpit. Series of messages giving people the right information. In fact, Simon has just said it, and we have not shared with him, that I ensure that I inform my people, so that whenever there is a fake news, they give a counter information with facts, because that is what we can do to ensure that we give people the right information. So we are doing our best, and nobody can do the best, but we can only do our best to ensure that what is within our capacity we are able to do, and we are able to make our congregants know that they are the ones that are responsible for giving an alternative narrative. What the politicians are saying is so that they reach their targets and get their interests. But for us, the interest of the nation is what we have. And Kenya belongs to us, and nobody is going to force us to do it their way, because Kenya exists even after the elections. Kenya exists even after my candidate, your candidate, loses the elections. And even when your candidate wins the elections, you'll never go to their home. You'll still go back to your home. You'll never go to their job. You'll still go back to your job. You'll never go to their businesses. Today they can come and mingle with us and eat with us and, dance with us. But come the 10th of next month, nobody will come to dance with you. In fact, all of them will be in their own cocoons and in their own status.
Disappeared.
Then they disappear in their thin air. They behave like the pendulum clock. You know how it moves. It moves this way. And then it picks people from the opposition, takes them to parliament, and then, to the government, and then the power is removed. What happens? They are left there until the other elections. Then they come to star us again. I think we only need to give an alternative narrative that people are going to use, so that we don't fight one another, we don't profile one another, and we don't give fake news to the populate. Thank you.
And remember, we are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube at CAC TV Kenya. Just seeing some of your messages coming in. Beatrice Muraguri, you say you are watching from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Thank you so much for tuning in from our neighbor country. And Rosalia Ngati is saying, I'm watching from Kawa West. And Gladys Nyambura Ndegwa says, I'm also following up on the conversation, such a good conversation. And just there is a question here that has been posed by Beatrice Muraguri. She says she's in Ethiopia and says, I think that is a question directed to you, Rev, because she talks about how will the church ensure that peace is maintained. Ethiopia, where she is, she says, has the religion as a unifying factor, but the church took sides in the ongoing conflict. you know, a church, a question being a very important question in regards to church taking sides, you know. In a scenario like this one we're having as a general election, she's asking, how will the church ensure that there is peace, if at all? We've seen scenarios of taking sides.
Yeah, thank you, Beatrice. I know you are my member in PCA Unity, and you're also my online member when I was serving in another church virtually. And we are happy to note that you are watching us, and many of you who watch us from diaspora. We are really happy to know that. Now, I would want to say that there have always been attempts to ensure that the church is balkanized, and that the church is used by the political class, even to anoint the candidates. It happened in 2007, and it almost removed the church from the list of people with dignity. But the church recovered from that. And if you look at today, although we have some sections of politicians who want to affiliate themselves with the church is very careful not to get into the balkanization of Kenya in the prefix of religion. Today, I've just come from the launch of the National Peace and Mediation Team that is chaired by Archbishop Ole Sapit of the Anglican Church, and that brings together not only the religious institutions but eminent persons in the country. We are setting stage for people to understand that we can never be bought by political class, but we stand to be neutral and non-partisan, so that in the unlikely event that the peace that we are preaching today to mitigate against lawlessness and conflict is breached, then we are ready to intervene. We are ready to step in as mediators. And therefore, I know if there are churches that have been compromised, they are not as many as has been before. We understand the situation in Ethiopia, where the church has taken sides, and they cannot now get into the gap to bridge that gap when the war has already erupted. But it is an unfortunate situation. We don't see such in Kenya now, because in Kenya, although other political class are affiliating themselves with churches, it is not that the church cannot speak. We have always said it, and where even other religious institutions want to get closer to the other political affiliations, we sometimes distance ourselves with them and say we want people to exercise their constitutional rights and responsibilities and civic mandate to vote, but we don't want you to influence us to follow your candidate just because we belong to your church. Yes.
I think that is a very good point, answering the question by Beatrice Muraguri. Your Reverend has been able to answer your question adequately on how the church will be able to maintain peace, in Kenya, especially this period of election. And now crossing to yet another issue, you talked about the church not being able to be influenced, but as the church remains firm on its ground, there is also another aspect of the young people, the youth, being elusive and, being vulnerable to, being used as tools for an election that will not have peace. For instance, we've seen as the scenarios in Nakuru. You are very aware of what has transpired in the last few weeks. The killings by suspected political gangs, even to a point that the government now steps up and now sends all security apparatus to that region. And the same people that are doing that, you find they arrested some of them at 19, 20, 21, 22. Simon, you are a data analyst, of course. All that is part of data, the ages that are part of the election. The young people, are they in a wrong position as we speak right now, looking at the scenarios of what is happening, in regards to political gangs, the young people being vulnerable to being used to cause mayhem and chaos and all that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, actually, one of the big problems that we have, and it also is shown by the data, 38% of the registered voters are youth. Whereas we know the youth is a very big demographic in the country. So that tells you that we are less. We did not reach the numbers that we expected. And IBC, for example, wanted to get 6 million, but we was only managed around 2 point, did not get to 3. So 2 point something million. And it has a number of factors. One of them, as we said, election is about trust. The first people who should have been helping to bring youth to the voting bracket are politicians. But the politicians don't offer hope to the youth that are there. So one of them is lack of hope. So they feel that even if somebody gets into power, what do we benefit? You know, they start thinking that the benefit should be directly, because I support you and tomorrow you've won, then I expect results immediately.
And instant.
And instantly. So we want instant. Wait, thank you, Rev. Because just like coffee, instant coffee, you put in the water and immediately you have your coffee and you start taking it. We don't have time.
The microwave generation.
Exactly. The microwave, no need to look for matchsticks or matchboxes.
Just put in and it's ready.
Exactly. So, and also when you look at the issues of voter education, this is something that is supposed to run throughout the cycle in the electoral process. But you find that even the IBC does not have funding to do that. Then the IBC also now has accredited voter education curricula, but you also find even the people who are supposed to take over the role of the civil society. Also, they've been finding shrinking space, lack of enough resources, because mounting a big campaign is also, in terms of voter education campaign, is also costly. So they have to rely on the development partners and also other factors of how they can make money. But most of them are non-profit, so it becomes a challenge. Also, the issue of leadership with integrity in the country, it has become a myriad. You'll find many candidates, for example, for this election, ESCC gave a long list of people who had issues, but we found most of them are now vying. They are now cleared, they are vying. So how do you tell the youth that they need to be people with integrity? The other issue is also about the issue of money in politics, which has now carried everything. As Rev said, and this is what we as youth are trying to, we should be looking at it from that perspective, is that when a politician wins, there's an interesting photo going around in social media which is saying that be careful, because when the candidate wins, he will go to the inauguration with his family. But when he wants to come to the campaigns, he comes with us so that we can cause mayhem. So now the issue of money in politics, some youth feel that this is the time to make money. The politicians will hire them, the gangs, and also there are so many. They call them the boys jeshi. The famous Jeshi Musiniache. These are things that have made them. When you call them Jeshi, it becomes now this is war front. Yes, which also the media have been putting the war front, saying it is the battle between these two candidates. So it's also exactly, it's a battleground. These are the battlefront counties. Which for them, they are trying just to say that these are the counties that we will look at candidates. The candidates should look at how they can win. But you see now also use of that word and also the issue of money. Most youth cannot afford to vie. It's very expensive to vie in this country. And because people want money. I want maybe to go around the constituency with a speaker mounted on a car, which becomes very expensive. So these are all issues that are making the youth also to shy away. But for registration also, I have a feeling that the school system also became a problem for this voter registration, because the youth used to get, and especially in Form 4, you get an ID before you leave school. But this time, when did the Form 4 leave? they left after voter registration. So even if they got voters, the IDs they could not register, it was already closed because of the issues of COVID-19. That has also been a factor. Yeah,
I think that is a very good point, because I also understand my director tells me time is far much running, but we must conclude on this issue, and we cannot conclude before we take the message from the elder himself. From where you sit, you've heard what Simon has talked about. He has spoken from the youth perspective, and as an elder and as a person who's also been versed with the governance and all that related matters. As a country, we have a youth that we can say is a youth that is vulnerable. From where you sit, as you also conclude, what would you say is the problem of the young people?
Well, I think the problem of the young people today is the way the young people have been taken through an orientation to believe that you have to be employed. It's good to be employed, but is it employment or deployment? When you think employment, you think of serving another person so that this person shares with you the benefit. But when you think of deployment, you think of what is it that is innate, what is it that is your potential, what is it that is in your passion. We have young people who begin to grow their talents and their passion when they are very young. And even when they are employed, they don't leave it. I like this lady called Betty, Dr. Betty, who is a journalist. This is a journalist who had the passion for journalism, but she first went and trained as a medical doctor. And then she uses that knowledge in the media. And what does she cover? She covers matters health. That is the kind of youth that we are supposed to be having. And that kind of a youth will not go around chanting slogans of a politician and waiting to be given, peanuts, only to cause chaos in people's, campaign trails. I think that kind of a youth can never be subjected to a politician's abuse. Today, I don't see you go around with the politicians. Why are you not doing it? And why is that other youth going through that? And some of these youth are university graduates. Others are artisans. Others have talents. They can do a lot of work, and they have passion for many things. I would want to say that much as our youth would want to be employed, they need to ask themselves, are we using the formula that was used when our grandfathers were looking for a job, or are we using the formula that is being used today in the world today? I would want to challenge the youth that before a politician uses you, ask yourself, where is his family? Remember what he has said. No politician today goes to what? To the campaign trails with their family. But when they are declared winners, who do you see around them? Which photos do you see around? Where are these people when they are misusing our youths to kill one another and to destroy people's property? I think the youth themselves have to, come to a table and call themselves to a meeting and say, why am I doing what I'm doing? And is it the best I can do? I think the youth have more to do than just following other people's and their ideologies. The youth have a lot of potential, and it is a treasure that we have as a community. But it is a treasure that we cannot say we have never talked to the youth, but when they begin talking, following euphoria, then what do they expect? I'm not against anybody, but I hear some people say the youth are following us because we are having some, what we call them, some campaign goodies. That when I win, then
this is what you get.
Then this is what you'll get. Others tell them, when I win, you'll get money. Others say, when I win, you'll get the weed. Others say, when I win, you'll get, some things. There are people who try to entice the youth with nonsensicals and things that will not be a reality and cannot add to the youth's, the youth's future.
Right, and I think that is a very important point for them, and a very good message to the youth. And I just give you 30 seconds, Simon. You also conclude and make your final remarks, because we've come to the end of the discussion this evening. I understand Rev has given all details and also advised the youth. So for you, I give you 30 seconds, so you also sign out, and then you can conclude this discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure you having us, and we hope we will be here to also continue adding information. And I will also add to the Rev and say that the youth, this is our future. So look at the right person who is going to make our life better going forward. Thank you so much.
All right, and that is a good one. So that is where we wind up this particular discussion. Of course, the youth is the future, because the quest for a peaceful election is on, and the calls are continuing, for us to have a peaceful election. During and after the election, we will need peace. So it's very important for each and every stakeholder to be able to play his or her part to ensure that we have a peaceful transition. And that is where we come to the end of this particular discussion. But before that, I'll just take a look at 1, 2, 3 messages. Beatrice Moragori, you have been watching all through. Thank you so much for watching. Ozali Angatia, of course, you've been following up this discussion this evening. Gladys Nyambura Ndegu, I can see you've been following up the discussion this evening. Terry Mwes, Beatrice, Elizabeth Ndung, of course, tuning in and following up this conversation. Irene Mwangi, I can see you also, following up this particular discussion and talking about how Rev has likened the election with a pendulum. Kenyans should take pride when there are peaceful elections, because we all win. I am maintaining peace is a collective responsibility. We all should play the role of ensuring that there is peace during and even after election. God bless you. And that is where we wind up this particular discussion. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a very interacting discussion in regards to the justice, peace and reconciliation and creation towards a peaceful election. My name is Chris Sambo, and we will do this again Friday right at the same time, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. We'll be having yet another different discussion, of course, focusing on the JPRC week, that is securing a peaceful election. But for now, goodbye and have a lovely night. See you on Friday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Goodbye.
Bye.